Hello, everyone. Um, Happy Monday. Um, as you may have, if you are on our email list, you may have seen that this is part of ConnecTogether, virtual content. And if my face looks familiar to you, I'm sure we have crossed paths with some of our other programs, but more than likely with Tetra. My name is Eric Molendyke. I'm the National Coordinator for the Tetra Society, and we're going to be going over the virtual resources that Tetra has available, how to submit a request for assistance. That's a big, long, fancy name, I know, so let's make that more commonplace, shall we? Basically, we call it an RFA, and that's where you get to ask for help from people who are not myself and not my colleague Doug here, but our technically skilled volunteers. Thanks for joining me today, Doug. I'm going to introduce Doug Doherty. My personal opinion is you can never go wrong when you're working with somebody who has the alliteration, and I'm certainly a fan of that. So I've had the pleasure of working with Doug since last September, I think.
Correct.
Where does time go? But Doug, he's lived about 10 different lives. Perhaps we could cover those sometime in another feature. But he is a Tetra program assistant and heard about Tetra through Neil Squire. And his skill sets are vast and varied, and definitely some of the aspects of Tetra, most notably our online project database, or as we like to say, the eBay of Tetra devices. Doug has been helping populate our base, but more on that later. Anything you'd like to say to the people, Doug?
No, just I'd love to come on board. Love helping as much as I can. And I mean, I think Tetra, the Tetra Society of North America, what an amazing program, and there's only better things to come as far as I can see.
Well, certainly we like to say we like to reimagine what's possible, and the possibilities are endless thanks to the needs of our members and the skills of our volunteers. So let's get right to it. Doug's going to help me scroll through or walk through, pardon the pun, kind of our Tetra website. So Doug, if you could bring that up for us. So hopefully you've seen this before, and there's different tabs. Volunteer is for if you want to become a volunteer. News and events. I mean, there's a number of ways to find out what's going on. Our Facebook page, our email outs, and really we want feedback from you. But this is our Tetra website here, and definitely if you want to know more about us, you could go to About Us. But probably if you've heard of Tetra, you're getting ready to ask for help or let us know how we can help. So one of the first things to do is if you click on chapters, that tab there, find a chapter, and you can kind of see the next visual of the map. And I love our little Tetra logos here. And, we have 30 chapters through across Canada. And what a chapter is where we have a coordinator, where we have volunteers, and the coordinator works to help connect technically skilled volunteers, our volunteers, with our members, you, somebody who has a need. And this has been Tetra's whole mandate since its existence, is if you require something, and I know myself from personal experience, disability or not, you find something that you think is going to work, it's not quite meeting your needs, that can be a frustrating endeavor. So a lot of what our volunteers do is make something customized to your needs, or might modify something that you have. And as you can see, Doug is scrolling through. Some places we don't have chapter coordinators, but we do have a toll-free number. During this time, phone calls are forwarded to me as I'm working from home here. And definitely we're available online. So you've checked out the map, you've decided, okay, that looks okay. And again, there is different contacts. You can see that we have regional coordinators that also help cover different areas of Canada because everybody's different. That's what Tetra specializes in. And of course, different parts of the country are different. And Doug will be the first to tell you, I'm not skilled enough to do this all on my own. So everybody needs helping hands, and the regional coordinators are definitely that for me.
So this toll-free number under your name here, that's how they best get a hold of you currently, right?
That's correct. That number is still up and running under these times. You know, we are working from home, but if you phoned in, I get an email with your voice recording, and I can get back to you. So that's kind of our contacts written down. And then if you wanted to get to putting in words how we can help you, that's really the exciting part, because, you know, problems can be frustrating and challenging, but it you know, gives you an opportunity to try and come up with a solution. So the best way to go about a solution is you, our potential client, being able to describe in your own words what your needs are. Now, I'm definitely not a good typer whatsoever. So when you're filling out, and who wants to fill out forms, so you can have a friend help you, a caregiver, health professional, a neighbor, whoever it may be. Maybe you have one of those specially trained dogs that does typing or whatever, and it doesn't have to be, as it were, a novel about what your needs are, but as long as we have your basic contact information and at least an idea. And I will say, the volunteers will always tell me, sometimes, you know, a request will come in and I try to summarize it. And really, you know, the great thing is when you speak with a volunteer, either online or in person, they're definitely going to get the best idea from you what your needs are. But for us to help you, we need some type of recording of it, and a request for assistance is the best way to do it. And definitely during these times, online is your best option. You can see here, Doug is scrolling through the drop-down menu. You can even start off and leave it in a not sure. Any RFA that's submitted comes to Doug or myself. So we will do our best to make our volunteers aware of the request. They do get reviewed. Sometimes we may follow up and say, you know, a description was missing, or maybe there's a letter missing and an address, and that's okay. Things happen. You know, we can definitely follow up, and Doug or myself are happy to email with you or happy to speak with you. So you can see here on the form, there are asterisks next to certain columns, and those you need to fill out. Otherwise, the request won't go through. And the address, it doesn't have to be your home address. It can be where you want to meet with the volunteer, where you think. So maybe it's a device for school, maybe it's a device over at your someone else's home. The volunteers will come to where you are, because again, the whole focus is that the device is custom made and in your environment. How am I doing so far, Doug?
Great, sir. I just want to say here's a couple of the asterisk areas. And yeah, a phone number is always nice to connect. And give several if you want. And of course, there's also email. Now you want to put your own email in here. So let's just say, it's jdoe@gmail.com, because you're John Doe right now.
All right. Do you ever think John will be replaced? And it, you know, John and Jane have hung on to that that category of being the no-name go-to name.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll ever be replaced with someone else. But nevertheless,
My vote's for Eric.
well, we'll see. I don't think it rolls off the tongue. Eric Doe quite as good as John, but nevertheless, we'll take it under your advisement.
What about Buck Doe?
Yes. Well, speaking of people who can advise you, Doug's in a very important category on the form right now. This is the referral information. So again, we love getting referrals from health professionals. As an example, an occupational therapist, a OT, because they, the volunteers are technically skilled, and their backgrounds and their skill sets vary. But of course, they're not health professionals. So anytime an OT or a physiotherapist puts in a request and provides themselves as a contact, it just provides that extra layer of information which can help lead to a project being completed. And I know that both Doug and myself throughout our lives have benefited from the skill sets of OTs and physiotherapists, and so we thank them for seeing Tetra as an avenue to help make creative solutions and devices. Okay, we'll scroll through. You can see that online we try to be new age, but also if you're still holding on to the fax, you can also give us the fax, as it were, and put down your number. And I am happy to say that we still do, what do you figure, Doug, about 3 times a month, or definitely 3 every other month, faxes still do come in. So
It's 3 to 5 faxes a month. Yeah, generally from OTs, usually from hospitals, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I have to say, we haven't gotten too many requests by carrier pigeon, but we would accept those too. Now, on the form here, I know people don't like saying their age, but we ask this because part of what we want to do is outreach to people and let people know what we're doing. I always say it's your choice whether you want to reach out to Tetra or not, and that's a big step to take to get involved, to tell somebody what your challenge is. And we ask for the age because demographics matter. They want to know that. Netflix has its top 10. People are interested in what you're watching, right? So we ask this question about the age because we want to know, how many kids projects do we have? How many seniors projects do we have? It helps give us ideas of where else we can present or who else we want to reach out to.
And honestly, part of it too is, as far as our reporting, sometimes we're trying to access grant money, which is specifically for children or specifically for seniors. And this helps us. So whether you're 3 or 73, that's where it makes a difference too.
Indeed. And the nature of disability, you don't have to get very in-depth at all. If you have muscular dystrophy, you can put MS. And really, we just ask this so that, because what happens again, every request is reviewed, and I try to summarize your description or share your description with the volunteer. So they might ask, what are the person's needs? And some of our volunteers might not have the most in-depth understanding of disability, but if I say spinal cord injury, they know what that means, or that CP is cerebral palsy. Now, probably the most important part of the form, other than your contact information so we can continue to stay in touch with you, is a chance to describe a problem that needs a solution. And the key part is the solution, right? Everybody has challenges, but let us know what your needs are so we can come up with a solution. And this is where you can write it in your own words. So,
for instance, Eric needs a better program assistant, but that's for another day.
Yeah, and I don't know if Tetra can, that might be out of the realm of our volunteers, but you get an idea. You can write in what your needs are, and it's really important because nobody's going to know you like yourself, and we're here to help you. And obviously, the more detail you put in, the better that helps. And then the second one, we ask if you've looked for something commercially available, because again, your input matters. So if you write down, hey, I went to IKEA and I thought I had something that met my needs, that helps the volunteer go, oh, they looked here, and maybe if our volunteer goes to IKEA or looks at what you've bought, it can help more quickly come up with a solution.
Suggestions?
So you probably summarize that in what your problem is. So you can just say none at this time. You can skip that. As you can see, this section is not starred. So you can, if you don't have any suggestions, you can just say, you know what, I'm skipping it.
Oh, okay.
So, but if you do, it's there, and it just kind of helps kind of categorize or break down different parts of your request. So we'll move on. Financial support, that really, we ask that because in some projects, as you can see, we can bill to WCB or whatever, but we are a nonprofit, and Tetra makes, effectively cost-effective, solutions to people's needs. And if you do not have the funds available to cover the cost to make a device, again, our volunteers are volunteering their time, so nobody's going to charge you an hourly wage or things like that. But to put together a device, usually there is some type of cost involved. If you could not afford that, that is okay. Everybody's at different levels of income, and our Tetra's main focus is that a device gets created and you have a new level of independence, you get to try something new. So don't let the fear of finances be a reason why you wouldn't want to submit a request. The main thing is that you summarize what your needs are, and that the device gets created, and we hope that it meets your needs. So we'll scroll through. Now, as we're going to talk about in our database, and in the next thing we're going to cover, photos are important. Pictures can say 1,000 words. Tetra is very understanding that you've taken a step to ask for help, and you might not want your picture taken, and that's okay. But could we at least have a picture of the device that was created for you? Because more often than not, and the volunteers will say this all the time, so I'll say it on their behalf, that saying of not wanting to reinvent the wheel is true. So if we have your permission to at least take a picture of the device that you created, and if you're comfortable, it's great seeing you use it, because if it worked for you, it's probably going to work, or something similar might work for someone else. So having that information in writing with pictures kind of really hits home on devices that may work.
That being said, if you answer no, that does not disqualify you from a request for assistance or an RFA.
Yes.
You are still put in order with anybody else with the same priority.
Yeah. And that's why we give the question yes or no, so you can decide for yourself. And then we do ask, of course, how did you hear about us? Because our communications team works really hard, and we want to know, as an organization, how are requests coming to us, and things like that. And then you can see, you can just write something in. This is one of the starred categories, so you would have to fill that out. If you submit an RFA and it doesn't go through, it means that one of the mandatory categories got missed. If you are having trouble submitting the RFA online, you could email myself, and you could put something in writing, and Doug or myself will do up the RFA for you. So if we scroll down a little further, you can see the liability part of the form. It talks about your willingness to meet with a volunteer, have something created. So we'll scroll to the bottom. Now, people ask this question. The date and signature is important because we want to know when the request came in. And sometimes it does take longer to get a volunteer. It could be based on skill set. It could be the volunteers are finishing other devices. And of course, during this time, we want people to be as safe as possible. Now, when it asks for a witness, I live on my own. You might not have a witness, certainly not now. So you have my permission to put in my name because I'm going to witness your request when you send it in anyway. So if you go to the Tetra and Contact Us page, Doug already showed you my contact information is on there. And you can type my name in and I can serve as your witness. Definitely, if you're doing it with a family member, they can serve as your witness, a health professional, somebody that you trust. If you don't have a parent or guardian, it says if applicable. So if you're your own guardian, great. And then as we see more and more on these forums, we're about helping people. So we want to make sure it's not a spam, it's not a robot. So you click that little magic button. And if all the necessary categories were filled out, you'd hit submit request. You'd get a thank you. We try to connect with people within 2 weeks. Again, between Doug and myself and the help of our director of operations, we see most of the RFAs that come in and do try to follow up. So I just got a little ding on my email right now that's told me that the test RFA that Doug did just came through. So hopefully, maybe you were able to hear that. You can see how the system works. So that's our request for assistance. Now, maybe you're technically skilled and you know someone who's technically skilled and you're like, if I could just see examples of what's been done, I bet I could come up with something on my own. Great. We call that a virtual solution. So again, this is TetraBase. So we've tried to make it like eBay where you get a description of what it is and some pictures. And definitely if you go on the base and you think, man, I'd love to know who created this because this is amazing. You could contact me and I would reach out to the volunteer who made the device if he's still involved. He or she is still involved with Tetra, and then we could have them contact you. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug because Doug has actually put on the database over 800 projects, and we are really trying to represent as many projects as we can, as many chapters, with as much detail that hopefully you, our viewers of the base, or our coordinators or volunteers, and our clients find the most useful. So Doug, I'll turn it over to you as far as if I was new to TetraBase and wanted to look up a project or look up projects that may be done in my area, how would I go about that?
Thank you, sir. Okay, so here we are on TetraBase. The first things first, you scroll down and you'll see that it has some of the latest projects which have been completed, certain devices. Now, my number one suggestion to you is view in full screen. Otherwise, there are limitations to what you can see. All right, now you can see that this tab here will let us explore many, many more projects. And yeah, we're definitely nearing 700 at this time. Now, saying right now, hey, who doesn't want to do something recreational and do something with all this time we have? So for all the artists out there, let's go to a filter, because you're not going to want to look through all these one by. Maybe you will. It's a great idea because you never know what you could ask for, and you'd be surprised at some of the projects we've done. So by all means, go through them and see what's available out there. But if you say wanted to paint, you go to the filter here. Now here, this part's important because it always has a default of project number. But let's go to problem. And then your keyword could be something such as paint. Automatically, we've got all of these projects coming up. Whether it's finger paint, we've got the various brush holders, easels, all of these things, such as here, at your fingertips. Now, even if you had put in brush, you have the various paint brushes coming up. Say for people out there, the parents that need some help right now, if you were to put in baby, oh, that's project number, see it? I did it already. Under project name, let's try baby. What have we got here? We've got several baby items. Now here we've got a baby changing table, right? But you have to sometimes be creative. Just because it just says this one changing table does not mean that we only have one. Here we have another change table. It just happened to be under a different name. So there's different filters that you can use. And whether you wanted to put, what is the problem? What if you need a crib? Now we have all of these different cribs coming up. So that's the kids sorted out for now. Just X out of that. What about having some help with food prep? Little help in the kitchen. Let's try the project name, kitchen. Now we've got several things coming up. Now here you go. This is a kitchen entrance ramp. Maybe not something that's going to help you cut your vegetables per se, but that's something you might not have even considered. Wow, you know, I do have trouble getting in and out of my kitchen. Counter adaptations, cabinet modifications, all of these various things that you can actually explore and find out more about. Now, that was under the name kitchen. If we go to a filter where, once again, we scroll down here to problem. Let's put in kitchen again, shall we? All of a sudden, we've got more and more and more and more. Look at this. We didn't have this faucet extender previously. We did not have the kitchen table extensions, as I remember. There's even, if I recall correctly, well, here is the cutting board, as I'd suggested about, you know, help with cutting the vegetables there earlier. And I do know it exists. There it is, a crock pot counter. I mean, who knew, right? So those are a few of the ways that you can look onto TetraBase and find your solutions. Now, once again, if it's not on here, that doesn't mean it cannot be done. But that's a good starter. So Eric, unless you feel I've missed something, then back to you, sir. And you might want to unmute, Eric.
See, bear with us here. This is one of our first recordings. So as Doug said, it's always better to hear somebody when they have their microphone on. So if we just go into so there's just a couple other things I wanted to mention. Can we just go back into the base for a sec, Doug?
Certainly.
Because sometimes people want to know what's been done in my area. So just in the drop-down menu, another filter, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but we can search by location or chapter, can we not?
Yep.
So if you live in Calgary and you wanted to know what's been done in Calgary, you could just type in Calgary, and then you're going to get projects that have been done in that area. So that's another way to do it. If you wanted to know what's done in my area rather than the overall of the base, and I did want to mention, you know, that the database is still being populated. If you don't see a project, as Doug mentioned, in the database, we'd be happy to add it. By all means, sometimes records get missed or haven't been added. We're trying to populate as best we can, and we'll just stop right there because I think this is a good example. Even if you don't have pictures, but you have a good description, we will showcase it this way. And this was based on the feedback of volunteers where they said, look, I've done this project, I want to share it. So what happens is we put in the logo, and as you can see in our logo, customized devices. So when you think of Tetra, think of custom to your needs. And if we have a description that provides information, we'll still post it, as you can see here. And as Doug said, if it doesn't come up right away, another option is if you can find my contact info or Doug's, you could email us and say, could you please search for something in the database for me? Because again, I understand that typing can be a challenge for some, and sometimes you might not be sure what you want, and maybe the information, there can be such a thing as too many choices. So if it's easier for you to email myself or one of the regional coordinators, they will look it up on the base for you and email you back. We're all about trying to find solutions not only to the actual projects, but getting you information in the most convenient way. So this has been kind of an overview of our website, our request for assistance, our database, or as what we like to say, our TetraBase, as David Fong, our IT and Director of Operations would say, think of an eBay of assistive devices. So this, and again, thank you for your patience and your time with both of us. This is our first official recording for Tetra on ConnecTogether, but there's going to be great content about Tetra, about our other organizations. And I do want to mention that if something is recorded live and you think, oh man, I missed it, it'll be available on our YouTube channels or our Facebook page. So, and we're going to continue to have the content coming at least for the next couple of months. So I just wanted to say thanks for your time and attention, and hopefully this has been informative and somewhat entertaining.
Thank you very much. And as we love to say at Tetra, we reimagine what is possible. So let us do that for you because we're here to help.